Okay, good morning, everyone. I have now started the recording. If you can all just send me a quick wave so I can just make sure you can all hear me, then we're ready to jump in with our session this morning.
Good morning, Ina. Can you hear me now?
Right, so good morning, everyone, and welcome then to the third and last of our revision sessions for ACBP 5121, Accounting 1A. Ours this morning is structured into three sessions where we will cover learning units 7, 8, and 9. So as I've mentioned, please make sure you've got there next to you on your desk your textbook, your paper, your pen, and your calculator so that you are able to follow alongside with us as we go through these three learning units. The team then this morning, I think you are already familiar with us. It's myself, Ina Frost. I will be the primary presenter. And then, as always, I've got Salama Parker with me. It seems that Salama's microphone is playing up this morning, but she will, as always, be assisting you with the questions that you may have and those you can post in the chats, and then we can also assist you with those questions. Remember, all of our sessions are being recorded, and later today, our sessions will be available on YouTube. There's the School of Management Studies channel, and that is where you will be able to find the recordings of all of today's sessions, as well as all the other revision sessions that we have completed throughout the semester.
Good morning, Ina. Can you hear me now?
Okay. Right, sorry, I was just checking in the chats that everything was going well there in the chats, and I'll be going back now to our presentation. Okay, so as we said, we're now getting you ready for our upcoming exam. Our exam is a 3-hour-long paper. It will be out of 150 marks, and it will cover all the learning units in your textbook. So with other words, from learning units 1 through to 9. We are going to begin with learning unit number 7, and learning unit number 7 deals with debtors and creditors. And if you want to follow alongside with us in your textbook, that's pages 212 to 228 of your 2026 version of the textbook. So if you want to be successful in this module, your path to success really consists out of two things. One is how you prepare yourself for each of the assessments. And that's why we have mornings like this one, where we then look at your preparation and just go through a few key points with you again to make sure you are ready for the exam. But then there's also certain things that you can do during the exam that will also improve your chances of being successful in this module. And our session this morning then has got two components. On the one hand, I'm going to be assisting you with preparation. So we are still going to go through these last three learning units to make sure you are well prepared for the exam. But on the other side, I'm also going to give you some exam tips that will also help you with the what do you do once you're in that exam venue, and what is it that you can do even right there while you're writing the paper that will also improve your chances of success. As always, I like to just begin us with the module outline. So I always like to take us back to the module outline, because these are the key outcomes that we expect you to know how to do in a particular learning unit. And these are, of course, the things that we can test you on. And so as you can see here, we're saying make sure you are aligning your studies with these outcomes, because these are the key takeaways that we want from you in this particular learning unit. Right, so learning unit 7 then, we said deals specifically now with debtors and creditors. And you'll remember in learning unit 5, we already did deal with credit transactions, and we already showed you how to do the debtors and creditors control accounts. Now, in Learning Unit 7, we build onto your knowledge by showing you how we're going to go about to record the individual data and the individual creditor. Because you'll remember in Learning Unit 5, we just dealt with our total debtors and our total creditors. So here in Learning Unit 7, this is now where we're looking at our individual debtor and our individual creditor. So to start our studies then on debtors and creditors, let's just go back at how do we define a debtor and a creditor. So a debtor is either a person or a business that owes money to the sole trader. They owe money to the sole trader due to credit sales that was made to them. Debtors are always current assets and therefore will always have a debit balance, and all of our amounts, whether it's in the debtor's control account or the debtor's ledger, must always include VAT. And in fact, here you can see in 2024, we actually asked the students to provide us with a definition for a debtor. So not only do you need to know how to record debtors in the control account or in the ledger, you also need to be able to define what is a debtor and what is a creditor. So let's now look at the definition of a creditor. So a creditor this time around is either a person or a business that the sole trader owes money to. Creditors come about when the business has credit purchases. So when the sole trader buys either inventory or other items on credit. Creditors are a current liability, and therefore they should have credit balances. And again, the same as with a debtor, we're always looking for the amounts including VAT. In the 2024 exam, students were asked to prepare the debtor's ledger. So that brings us then to our first exam tip for the morning. And our first exam tip is when you are there in the exam venue and you are now faced with a question like this one, like this question 3.6 that our 2024 students were faced with, then the first thing you're going to make sure is that you are managing your time properly. And what do we mean by that? It means that you're going to look at how many marks have been allocated to this question. You're going to multiply the mark allocation by 1.2 minutes. And that will then tell you how long can you spend on this question. So you can see then in an exam, we can spend just over 28 minutes on earning these 24 marks and preparing the debtor's ledger. It's really key that you must be strict with yourself and stick to the time allocated to a particular question. Because a worst case scenario for you is to come to the end of the paper and you have to leave out questions because you've used up your full 3 hours and now you don't have time to finish some of the last questions. Or another worst scenario is if you start rushing through questions. So maybe now at the end you see, oh goodness, I've only got 20 minutes and I still have to do 4 questions. And now you start rushing, and then that also has a negative impact on your marks. So it is really key when you go into that exam venue that you make sure you stick to the allocated time for every question. And then at the end of the paper, if you still have extra time available, then you can always circle back and re-look at some of your questions. Right, so in this question, they asked the student to prepare the debtor's ledger. But before we can jump in preparing the debtor's ledger, we just have to first make sure that we understand what is meant by all of these different terms. So do you all know what is a debtor's ledger? For example, do you know the difference between a debtor's ledger and a debtor's journal? Or do you know the difference between a debtor's ledger and the debtors control account. These terms come out of both learning units 5 and 7, and it's key for you to know these different terms and what it is we expect of you when you have to do a question based on each of these three, because they're very different, and of course it will give you very different answers. So if you go about doing a debtors journal, when we're actually asking for a debtors ledger, then obviously that's going to really impact your marks very negatively. So let's begin and just have a look again. What do we understand by a debtors journal? So a debtors journal, we covered that with you in learning unit number 5. And the debtors journal is where we record all the credit sales of inventory. So that's what goes into the debtors journal. Any credit sales of inventory. And here you can see we've got the names of all the debtors that we sold inventory to on credit. If you want to go and do some revision on a debtors journal, then look at example 5.1 and question 6.7. Both of those are good questions to work through if you need more revision on the debtors journal. Just a quick reminder, your debtors control column will always be the column including VAT. And remember, we said when we record both debtors and creditors, we always use the amount including VAT. So this will be the 115%. Your sales is always your number excluding VAT. And then, of course, your output VAT, that is just your 15% VAT. And remember again, that 15% is calculated on the sales number, which is the amount excluding VAT. If you want to do another revision question, you can also try question 4 of the 2025 exam. In that question, we also asked students to prepare the debtors journal and also the debtors allowances journal. If you still need more revision on debtors and debtors allowances journals, please go back to the revision that we did with you in the preparation for test number 2. That is available to you on our YouTube channel. So it's available on the School of Management Studies channel. And there, if you look, you'll see our test 2 revision. And that's where we also covered the debtors and the creditors journal. So please make sure you optimize all of these recordings as part of your exam preparation. So once we've now completed the debtors journal, so remember a debtors journal now gets prepared monthly. So throughout the month, we will now record all of those credit sales. And then at the end of the month, we post our journals. And the debtors journal is actually going to be posted to 2 different places. The individual transactions is going to be posted to the individual debtor in the debtors ledger. And then the totals of the debtors journal is going to go to the general ledger, and it's going to go to your debtors control account. So as I said, so the individual transactions with each individual debtor will be posted to their account in the debtors ledger. And the total of your debtors journal will get posted into the general ledger and, of course, into your debtors control account. So this is then what the debtors ledger looks like, and this is then what comes out of learning unit number 7. And in our debtors ledger then, we keep an account for each one of our debtors. So on my slide at the moment, we can see we've got 3 debtors, and you can see how I've recorded the transactions with each of those debtors. And 2 good questions for revision, if you want to go and practice doing the debtors ledger, is question 7.2 and question 7.9. I would recommend that you look at both of these questions, because both questions ask you to do the debtors ledger, but the way in which we present the information is different. And it's important for you to see the different ways in which we can present the information in the exam question. So in 7.2, if you've got your textbook with you, you can have a quick look. In 7.2, we deal with only one debtor, and we give you the transactions with just that one debtor. Where in 7.9, we give you all the journals for a particular month, and you then have to summarize the transactions with each of the debtors from those journals that is given to you in the question. So make sure you revise both of these questions so that you can see the different ways in which we can ask you to prepare a debtors ledger. Now, the debtors control account, this is the one that is in the general ledger. And here, if you look at your screen now, you can see I don't have any individual transactions here. In here, we have the totals from the different journals. So if I look at the debtors control account, I can't see any names of any debtors, and I can't see any individual transactions with debtors. I can just see the total credit sales, the total sales returns, total cash received from our debtors. So can you all see the difference then? So the debtors control account is quite a high-level summary of all transactions with debtors, where if I just quickly go back, here in my debtors ledger, you can see it's far more detailed. Here I have an account per individual debtor with the individual transactions with that particular debtor. So I hope you can all see the difference then between a debtors journal, a debtors ledger, and a debtors control account. Just go. Okay. Then the last thing that comes out of Learning Unit 7 is the debtors list. And the debtors list, remember, is like a mini trial balance just for debtors. So in the debtors list, we list the names of all of our debtors, the unique number or folio number for that debtor, and then their balance at the end of the particular month. And then this balance or total of all of your debtors at the end of the month has to be equal to the balance on the debtors control account in the general ledger. And this is what I always like to call the beauty of accounting. So our total from our individual debtors must be equal to our balance on the debtors control account. Because remember again, your debtors control account was prepared using the totals of the journals, where your debtors ledger was prepared from the individual transactions with each debtor. So the individual transactions must equal the total of those transactions. If you want to do revision on debtors, then here is the questions in your textbook that I would suggest you work through. And as you can see, for example, question 6.7 asks you to do the journals. But for additional practice, you can also add onto question 6.7 a debtors ledger and a debtors control account. Because then you've practiced all the different journals and ledgers that we can ask you regarding debtors. And then there's again that question 7.2 that we spoke about, question 7.9, and you can also add on to question 7.9 the debtors control account. Now, when it comes to creditors, it's the same situation. So again, you need to know the difference between the creditors ledger, where we're going to record the individual creditor, the creditors journal, where we're going to record all credit purchases, and the creditors control account, which is your account in the general ledger, dealing with your total creditors. So just like we spoke now about the debtors, you need to know exactly the same terms also for creditors. And questions that you can work through to practice on creditors is question 5.8. That takes you through all the different journals. And then again, you can add to question 5.8 a creditor's ledger and a creditor's control account. And then once again, then you have practiced all the different questions that we can ask you on creditors. Then if you want to do only creditors' ledgers, you can look at question 7.4 and 7.6 of your textbook. Okay, I'm going to just pause on this slide for a minute, just to give you all a chance to maybe just jot this down in your textbook. Okay, Salama, I'm looking at the chats. I can't see anything coming up here in the chats. I think it looks like you are covering all the questions there on your side. I don't know if you want to test your microphone one more time, just to see if you are able to talk to us.
Good morning, Ina. Can you hear me?
Oh, no. Oh, dear. Still doesn't look like we're able to hear you. So if you wouldn't mind just keeping an eye on the chats for us.
Okay. Okay. Good morning. Okay. Good morning, Esty and Kylie and Lucinda. Glad you can hear me. Um,
Okay, apologies, students. I've just noticed, I see there was a problem with my microphone. Now my microphone was off. So let's just quickly go back. Apologies for that. Let's just go back then. I think we were here the last time. Okay, so we were here the last time. So that was just where I showed you the different questions that you should be able to answer for both debtors and creditors. And then, as you'll remember, the key to your success this semester is to do as many questions as you possibly can. And when you've finished the questions is to look at the back of your textbook, and that's where you will find all the answers to the textbook questions. Okay, so we were talking earlier about this 2024 exam paper, and in this exam paper, then they asked the student to do one of the accounts for one of the debtors in the debtors ledger. So we're going to now talk a little bit about how to answer this question. But before we quite start answering the question, we just have to make sure we understand the difference again between the debtors control account and the debtors ledger, and how we go about to record transactions into these different ledgers. So in your debtors control account, that's the one in your general ledger, you have a debit side and a credit side. So for any general ledger account, we have a debit side and we have a credit side. But in the debtors ledger, things look a little bit different. In the debtors ledger, instead of having a debit and credit side, we have a debit and credit column. Okay, can you all see that? So in the debtors ledger, we have a column for debit and credit, where in the general ledger, it's a debit and credit side. Now, for a debtor always increases on the debit side. So in your debtors ledger, any transactions that increase the amount owing to you by a debtor will be recorded in the debit column. So in the general ledger, we're going to record it on the debit side of the debtors control account. And in the debtors ledger, we're going to record it in the debit column of the particular debtor. And then any transactions that's going to reduce the amount owing by the debtor. So with other words, when they pay us their outstanding balance, we record that on the credit side of the general ledger account. And in the debtors ledger, we're going to record that in the credit column of your debtors ledger. So once again, we can still use DebtClick because remember, we use DebtClick to decide whether the increase is on the debit or the credit side. And even for your debtors ledger, you can also make use of DebtClick. And remember, according to DebtClick, we say we're going to debit expenses, assets, and drawings. And of course, our debtor is one of our current assets. And then any increases will therefore be either on the debit side of the general ledger account or the debit column if you're looking at your debtors ledger. And any decreases will either go on the credit side of your general ledger account or the credit column of your debtors ledger. For creditors, then, it works the other way around. So if we look again here at our DebtClick, so here in terms of our DebtClick, if we're working with a creditor, remember your creditor is your liability. So there, the increases will go on the credit side and the decreases to the debit side. So with other words, to look at it like this, your creditors control in your general ledger increases then on the credit side. So with other words, in the creditors ledger, the increase will be added to the credit column. And for a creditor now, a decrease is reflected on the debit side of the general ledger account. and in the debit column of the creditor's ledger. It's important when you start a question on either a debtor's or creditor's ledger that maybe just above the debit and the credit, you quickly make your plus and your minus, so that will be a reminder for you in which column to place anything increasing this particular debtor or creditor, and where should I record any decreases. So back to our 2024 exam then. So in that exam then, they asked us to prepare only one account for just one debtor. So it's for this debtor, student residence 4, that is the debtor. And we had to record all the transactions for that debtor into the debtor's ledger. So this question then was quite similar to question 7.2 of your textbook. The way the question was presented was then very similar to that question 7.2. So in our first column, we put the date of the transaction, and then in the next column, it has the heading document number. But in this question, we're not just looking for a document number, we're actually looking for the name of the source document as well as the document number, if that is given to you in the question. In this past exam paper question, they actually did not give document numbers, so we could only write down the names of the documents. Now, at this point in a question, we're not always going to give you the name of the document, because now we assume that by this stage of your studies, you know which source document is linked to what type of transaction. So, for example, we now assume that you know if we say we made a credit sale to the debtor, the document that goes with a credit sale is a credit invoice. Or if we say the debtor paid us a certain amount, we assume that you will know the business is going to issue a receipt. If you still need some more revision on these source documents, please go back to this page 107 of your textbook. I think Salama and I have shown you this page quite a few times, also in our test 2 revision, because this page is just such a fantastic revision page when you prepare yourself for an assessment. Because remember, and if you want to follow alongside with me and quickly open up page 107 in your textbook, I'll just wait a minute for you all to get there. Okay, so this page 107 covers all the journals that's in this first column. It gives you the correct abbreviation for all the journals, so that will be your folios that you're going to use. It tells you what type of transaction is recorded into each of these journals and what is the corresponding source document that goes with these transactions. And so it's this last column of the table that I'm referring to now, that I'm saying we expect you now at this point to know which source document gets matched up with what kind of transaction and with what kind of journal. This is the first page of Learning Unit 4 in your textbook, so please make sure that you include this page as part of your revision for the exam. Okay, so now we've put in all the source documents and the source document numbers, everything that was given in the question. And now our next column is for the folios. And remember, whether you're in your general ledger or here in your debtor's ledger, these folios always carry marks. And they are super easy marks for you to earn, whether it's a question on a general ledger account or whether it's the debtor's ledger or the creditor's ledger. And remember, by folio, we mean in which journal did you find this transaction. So a folio then is the abbreviation of the particular journal where this transaction was recorded in. And again, at this point of your studies, we assume that you know a credit sale is recorded in a debtor's journal, or that cash received from a debtor is cash book receipts. And again, that's why this page is just so key, because this page again helps you to match up the transaction, the source document, the journal, and the folio. So when we talk about debtors, there's really only 4 folios that should be coming up in your debtors ledger. And the 4 most key folios that you must make sure you know, with other words, the 4 key journals for transactions with debtors, is your debtors journal, your debtors allowances journal, your cash book receipts, and your general journal. So in this terms of this folio column, then you really have a choice of only those 4 journals to use when you are writing down your folio. Then, of course, the next thing we're going to write down now is the actual amounts of the transactions. And remember now, we said for a debtor, debit is where we're going to put in the debit column. That's where we're going to write down any transactions increasing the amount owing to us by the debtor. And in the credit column, that's where we're going to write down the amounts for any transactions decreasing the amount owing by the debtor. So again, you can see the credit sale went to the debit column because that's increasing how much the debtor owes us. And here where the debtor makes a payment to us, we put that in the credit column because that is decreasing how much the debtor owes us. And as we said earlier, remember, all of your amounts should be including VAT. And here you can see in that past paper question, they gave the students the amount excluding VAT to see if the students know that all of these amounts must be inclusive of VAT. So look out for little things like that in the question paper. Are we giving you the amount including or excluding VAT? And if we give you the amount excluding VAT, then you should still be adding on the 15% VAT. Then, as I said, your debit column then is where your increases is going to be. Your credit column is your decreases. And then your balance column is where we're going to work out the balance owing after every single transaction. In your general ledger, we work out the balance only at the end of the month. But in your debtors and creditors ledgers, we work out the balance after every single transaction. Can you all see that? So your balance is worked out after every single transaction. And the way we do it, we start with the balance, the opening balance. And then for this transaction was a debit, so we're going to add to it the debit amount, and we're going to get the new balance. Then we're going to take the new balance, and now it was a credit transaction, so now we're going to subtract the credit amount, and that now gives you the next balance. Okay, so each time you start with the balance before the transaction, and then you either add or subtract the next transaction, and that will then give you the new balance that you're going to enter in this last column. And then the last thing that I need to remind you of when you do a question like this, and this really applies to any questions in the exam paper, and this is to show your workings. You can see in this question, the student nearly had to calculate each of the amounts in the debtor's ledger. You can see there was quite a lot of calculations required of the students. And so please make sure, students, that you are showing all of your workings. even in a debtor's ledger, in the creditor's ledger, in the general ledger. Please, if you are working out anything on your calculator, make sure that you show that as part of your workings. You can also look at last year's exam paper. In last year's exam paper, they also asked the students to do a debtor's ledger. It was question 5 of last year's exam paper. So if you want to go and practice one more question based on a debtor's ledger, then you can also go and look at that past paper question. The next thing I just want to talk about while we are talking about debtors and creditors, remember, we can also ask you general journal entries, and this is also what they did in the 2024 exam paper. And earlier, I remember a student had a question on credit losses. So maybe just look now at the entries that I'm going to show you now. That will help you with recording your credit losses. Now, the general journal entries, that comes out of Learning Unit 5, but I'm combining it into this session here because this is particularly dealing with entries around a debtor. If you need a lot more revision on your general journal entries just in general, then again, please go back to our School of Management Studies channel on YouTube, and you can look specifically at this recording here. Test 2 General Journal. So there is an entire video of a half an hour that deals only with general journal entries. So if that's something that you're still battling with, then please go back to our previous recordings. But let's now look at these 2 questions that came from the 2024 exam. So remember again, our exam tips is you continuously managing your time. So every time you're starting a new question, you're going to quickly check, okay, what's the mark allocation? Okay, it's 11 marks here, 6 marks there. How much time do I have to complete it? Right, so for this question, 3.4, I can take roughly 13 minutes. And here on this question, roughly 7 minutes. Okay, so now you know between these 2 questions, I can't spend more than 20 minutes. Because if I do that, it means that later questions in the paper, I am going to have to start rushing later in the paper. So please, students, this is really a key exam tip, is to manage your time when you do an exam paper. Then the second thing we want to show you as well is the importance of reading your required. Because in each question, there's a lot of little details that we give you. And if you miss any of these little details, it's either going to mean the question is going to take you longer than it should, or it's going to impact your actual answer, because if you're missing something, then you might not be answering what we expect of you. And all of those, unfortunately, will have a negative impact on your marks. So let's just look at this tiny paragraph here and see how many little details is included just in these 2 sentences, or this little paragraph over here, that is important to how you're going to answer the question. So the first thing we see is immediately they're talking about VAT, and they tell us that this transaction includes the 15% VAT where applicable. Okay, so immediately we know we're dealing with a VAT vendor, and we know that, for example, that 18,000 rands will be including VAT. So very important information. Then they're asking us to do a general journal entry. Of course, that's key information. So immediately we know how we have to structure our answer. Then they tell us document numbers, dates, and folios may be ignored. So with other words, don't waste time. Don't add in dates, document numbers, and folios. That's not needed for this particular entry. And then the last one, they tell us we do have to provide a narration. And remember, if the question says provide a narration, it means marks are going to be allocated to that narration. So if you leave out that last step, it's going to cost you in overall marks. So you can see just in this very small section here then was 4 important pieces of information that's all key to us answering the question and earning those full 6 marks. So let's now look at how we're going to put together the general journal entries for these 2 transactions. When you prepare a general journal entry, and we spoke about that in learning unit number 5, and you'll see it also on that video on YouTube that I just showed you. But just to recap here, remember, you are always going to follow our 4 steps. So step number 1 is you need to determine which general ledger account or accounts will be debited in this transaction. Secondly, you need to determine which general ledger account or accounts will be credited by this transaction. Third, when you've put your amounts into your general journal entry, double check that your total debits are equal to your total credits. Because remember again, a general journal entry is a double entry, so your debits must equal your credits. And then don't forget the narration. And in this question, they even reminded you that you must give the narration for your general journal entries. So let's go back now to steps 1 and 2. So when we asked to do a general journal entry, our first question then to ourselves is which general ledger accounts are being impacted by this transaction? So that's the first thing we have to determine. And then once we've identified the accounts, then we need to determine whether we need to debit or credit those specific general ledger accounts. So in the first question in 3.4, here they tell us now that one of our debtors have gone into liquidation. With other words, it means the debtor can't pay their outstanding balance. And we now need to be writing off that balance that the debtor is owing us. So which 2 accounts are going to be impacted? Immediately we know it's going to be impacting our debtor because we have to write off one of our debtors. So our debtors control definitely. And because we're writing off an amount, it's going to be our credit losses. Okay, so immediately we've identified 2 general ledger accounts that's going to be impacted by this transaction. But then we remember they told us in the question that for this business there is VAT, and VAT is applicable to the question. So it's not only going to be debtors control and credit losses, because the question specifically tells us about the VAT, there's also going to be an entry into the input VAT account. And remember, your debtors control and input VAT, those are your assets. So those are 2 asset accounts. And your credit losses, that is your expense account. So for all of these, we're going to use debt in debt click, which means they increase on the debit side and they decrease on the credit side. Just a reminder that credit losses recovered, that is an income account to the business. And for that one, you will use click. And if you want to revise a question with credit losses recovered, then also look at question 7.3 of your textbook. When you are asked to record any transaction, whether it is now in your general journal, like the question that we're practicing now, or whether it is in your general, in any of your other journals, or even in your debtors or creditors ledger, when you read the transaction, you must always ask yourself, the amount that's given to you in that transaction, does it exclude VAT? If so, do I still have to add on VAT, with other words, multiply by 1.15? And you'll remember when we wrote up that debtors ledger, there was one transaction where we gave you the amount excluding VAT, and you still had to add on the VAT. Then again, if you read your transaction, you can see, does this amount already include VAT? And do I need to therefore take out the VAT? So that is maybe more when you're writing up your debtors journal. To get to your sales number, you will have to divide by 1.15. And then you can't forget all of these other supply categories that we showed you in Learning Unit 3. So when you deal with a particular transaction, you also quickly have to think, oh, hang on, is it zero rated? Is it exempt? Is it non-allowable? For example, also in that debtors ledger that we wrote up, there was interest that was being charged onto the debtors account. And of course, interest is an exempt supply. So for the interest calculation, we would not have added on VAT. So for every single transaction, whether you're writing up one of your journals, whether you're doing your debtors ledger or your creditors ledger, make sure that for every single transaction, you just quickly ask yourself these 3 questions. Does the amount already include VAT? Does the amount exclude VAT? Or is it maybe one of these items that we showed you in Learning Unit 3? In our earlier videos, when we spoke about Learning Units 4 and 5, we often spoke about the fact that Learning Unit 3 really fits in with everything. So even here in a Learning Unit 7 question, please don't forget what we taught you in Learning Unit number 3. So let's have a look now at our general journal entry. So here is now the general journal entry for the credit losses. So we debited the credit losses account, and that will be the amount excluding VAT. So you see, with other words, that's now here. So we had to divide by 1.15 to get to our amount excluding VAT. Your amount next to your debtors control account, that will be the amount including VAT. And then, of course, your input VAT amount, again, that is only the VAT portion. And as we mentioned earlier, please don't forget to show us all of your workings when you do your general journal entries. So we said the easiest way to create a general journal entry is always to go back to think about the general ledger accounts and then to think whether these accounts will be debited or credited. And this kind of a little working, you can quickly sort of just jot down there on your answer booklet or in your exam paper, where you just quickly identify the 3 ledger accounts, and then you identify whether the account needs to be debited or are we going to credit the account. And then when you do your general journal entry, then it's pretty easy for you just to write what you can see. So we can see clearly now input VAT is going to be debited, and that's a plus because it is an asset. Credit losses is going to be debited, that's your expense, and your debtors control is the one that we're going to credit because the debtors control is the one that's going to be reducing. And so once you've drawn your general ledger accounts and whether you're going to debit or credit them on the piece of paper, then it's pretty easy to write up your general journal entry by literally just copying over what you can see over here. So you can see clearly there, credit losses debit, credit losses debit, input VAT debit, input VAT debit, debtors control credit, debtors control credit. So always try and quickly do those general ledger accounts. It will help you to construct your general journal entry. And remember, they did ask for the narration, so there is my narration as well. But in this particular question, there was actually 2 entries that was required of us. And in this particular year, in 2024, many students actually missed that there was actually 2 general journal entries that they had to prepare. So in this question, then, we were told that the debtor went into liquidation and that they couldn't pay their balance, but they were able to actually pay some of the balance. So they did pay us 25 cents for every 1 rand that they owed us. So with other words, there's still a second transaction that we need to record, and that's the cash that we receive from this particular debtor. And in this particular question, even the cash that's being received from the debtor is also going to be recorded in the general journal. Okay, so in this question, both these transactions must be recorded in the general journal. So that's again why we said earlier, it's so key for you to read all of these details so that you don't end up doing only one of the 2 transactions and then you're losing quite a few marks, because you can see this question was out of a total of 11 marks. So 11 marks for both of the entries. So that's what the entry is going to look like then for the cash portion. So this is the 25% that we received in cash. So it goes to the bank account and the credit goes to the debtor's control account. Again, you can see I'm showing my workings nicely. So my lecturer, when they mark the paper, can also see my workings. And then the second transaction was the credit losses, and that's the one that we have already recorded in the previous slide. And again, if you want to see this in the general ledger, this is what it's going to look like. So now in the general ledger, there's the cash part that we've received. There's the part that we have to write off. And now we can see this debtor has got a 0 balance because they owed us 38,600. We received 9,650 in cash, and the remainder we have to write off as a credit loss. And so we credited debtors control, we debit bank, we debit input VAT, and we debit credit losses. And that's then how we match it up to the 2 general journal entries. Again, I think I'm just going to pause here. There's now quite a bit going on the screen. So I'm just going to pause for a moment to give you all a chance to see if you can match up the general ledger entries to the general journal. So a reminder then again, a debtor increases on the debit side, decreases on the credit side. Your bank is increasing on the debit side, input VAT increasing on the debit side, and credit losses increasing on the debit side. When you do your general journal entries, of course, it's important that you must know the correct name of the general ledger account. And where do we go to again to learn our general ledger account names? We come back here to page, I think it's page 53 of the textbook, but essentially it's this figure 2.2 of your textbook. Remember, this page is so key for you for all of your learning units in your first semester. And here is what we mean by general ledger account names. These are the kind of account names that we are looking for. And what you can actually do is you can combine this page with DebtClick. And if you combine your knowledge of your account names with DebtClick, then it will make it so much easier for you to understand or to answer general ledger questions and general journal questions. So remember again, in terms of DebtClick, for debt, that is your assets, your expenses, and your drawings. So assets, expenses, and drawings opening balance goes on the debit side, and the increase goes on the debit side. And then for click is for your capital, it's for your liabilities, and it's for your income. And for click, then capital, liabilities, and income, if they increase, they go onto the credit side of the account, and also the opening balance goes on the credit side. So remember to combine your understanding of debt click with this figure 2.2 chart of accounts, page 53 of your textbook. And if you remember those two together, then you'll see how easy it is to do your general journal entries and any general ledger questions. Okay, so in terms of a general, in terms of your general ledger, your debtors ledger, your creditors ledger, and your debtors and creditors journals, go back to this example 5.1. This is a really nice comprehensive example that takes you through all the journals, the general ledger accounts, and then you can add onto that example a debtors and a creditors ledger. So these are some more questions for you to practice. And don't forget, at the back of your textbook, there's also the additional revision questions, questions 14, 15, and 16, that you can also practice. And then, as we mentioned, all of the answers for revision questions, normal questions, they're all at the back of your textbook. And then if you need a more revision on anything on Learning Units 4 and 5, please go back then to our YouTube channel and go and watch those recordings. And I saw in the chats, someone was also asking about VAT. Oh, let me just go back here. Someone was also asking about VAT calculations. Don't forget, there's also a video covering VAT calculations and all of Learning Unit number 3. So please optimize all of these resources as you get yourself ready for the exam. So out of Learning Units 4, 5, and 6, and 7 as well, and in first year level, there's really only a handful of transactions that we can test you on. And if you can understand how to record these transactions, then you will see when you go through textbook questions or whether you go through past paper questions, all of the questions really are just built around the same set of transactions. So at your end of your preparation, just ask yourself, can I record all of these transactions into the correct journal? Do I know which journal they go into? Do I know how to post that journal to the general ledger? Can I do all of these transactions for both the inventory systems? Because remember, we added that in Learning Unit 6. So can you do it for perpetual and periodic inventory? Do I know the VAT impact of all of these transactions? Do I know which source document is matched with these transactions? And can I also record the impact of these transactions on the accounting equation for both inventory systems with and without VAT? So if you can answer yes to all of this, then you know you have a solid foundation on Learning Units 2 through to 7. We're going to take a short break now. Let's just take a 5-minute break at this point. So I see now it is 11:05. So we're going to take a break now until 11:10. And then we will carry on with our revision. We've got 2 more sessions to go. The next session is dedicated to Learning Unit 8, salaries and wages. And then our last session is dedicated to Learning Unit number 9. So please rejoin us in 5 minutes, and then we will continue with our revision.